Can we go through the injury report?
I know. What is it? I don't know exactly.
Porzingis,
I don't know. What is it?
Doubtful.
Doubtful?
still doubtful, so no change on that.
No.
Questionable, Jayson.
Questionable.
Questionable.
Has anything changed since the 4:30 report?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Along those lines, anything worthy of concern for any of those guys? Anyone expected to miss longer time?
No idea.
Can Brian come up there?
It's all you.
With Jaylen, how is that lower back doing? Have you talked to him lately? No, I asked you, have you talked to him?
I haven't talked to him yet. He's
Okay.
questionable. Find out after he shoots, I think.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Brian, how are you gonna handle the pick and roll tonight?
Now that I can answer.
Last year you were 21-5, and that might have been the best basketball you played all season. And there were a lot of factors that go into that. You still had a great season, but what needs to go into the fight to keep improving and not let this start be the best basketball you played this season?
Yeah, I think one expected to not go well at some point in some capacity. I think you try to fight to be the best version of yourself for a long time, but then there's always the other side where it's like adversity can make you better, and it's like you need to learn how to handle stuff when it doesn't go your way. And so I think having an expectation of like there will be bumps in the road along the way, but also I think the biggest thing is being open-minded to playing different. So you take a look at last night's game. We had 3 or 4 different coverages. We've kind of done that in a few games now. So as long as we're open-minded that like there's no one way to win a game and there's no one way to win a stretch of games, and it's going to take something different. If we get into a playoff series against a particular matchup, we're going to have to play differently. And so I think, last year being my first year, not necessarily closed-minded, but just kind of like this is who we are, this is what we do, but we never had other pitches to go to, so to speak. So I think just kind of staying open-minded to that.
How did you kind of assess that last year? How did that start to become something that you looked at? Like we weren't good enough at being open-minded at changing when the situation dictated that?
Some of it is naturally, building trust. I think building communication with the guys. Like at the end of the day, if you want to do something, there's got to be full like trust, buy-in, communication. You got to like kind of talk about what your philosophy is. So some of the off-season stuff was like, hey, we've done it this way with Brad, we've done it this way with Ime. Let's kind of combine the two of them, and there's just got to be times that we got to do things that are different. And sometimes because of the way we've always done it here, it's just kind of like this is what we do, because it's worked. But I like the open-mindedness that we've brought, on both ends of the floor, and I think that's something we got to kind of keep up.
If you guys are shorthanded tonight, what can you gain from situations like this?
Yeah.
And in regard to something similar?
Stuff like that, depending upon what our lineups are, what type of plays we go to, what the matchups are, what the coverages are. To me, it's like there's never one way to win a game. There's never one way to win a series. So last night in the first half, we did some things. In the second half, we kind of played completely different on offense, and stayed in one coverage, pretty much the whole time on defense. So I think it's just keeping that is like to me, we've been talking a lot about like the only constants are you got to play hard, you got to talk. After that, and then some of that is because of the way the league is now. Like team offenses are so dynamic, guys are dynamic. The league's constantly changing. So I think you have to play hard, you have to talk after that. It's kind of the game's a read, and the game will kind of tell you what to do.
Joe, Jayson always wants to be out there. You've talked about how that's a positive for him, but him dealing with the swelling, him dealing with some of the pain in that ankle. What is the balance of playing for the long game here, but also him wanting to be out there and the motivation to do that?
Yeah, I think just understanding when time is time, when you have to give something a rest, and sometimes it can do more harm than good. So just kind of understanding that, and just trusting, like you said, that long mindset, long game mentality.
And I know you talked about it a little bit last night, but for him, the shot selection, I know you always want him to be aggressive, but on the pull-up threes, the numbers aren't great this year, and really over the last 2 years, they haven't been there for him. Is there anything you're kind of seeing there from him? Is it just the way teams attack him? Like, why hasn't he been able to get that number higher in that spot?
I don't know from a shot mechanic standpoint. I don't really talk to him about that. He does a good job of studying that on his own, but I would say just for some of them, just depending upon who the matchups are against. But at the end of the day, it's a shot he's going to have to make. So, it's a shot that I'm comfortable with, depending upon time and score and depending upon the matchup, and just got to continue to work at it. But I think this year he's done a really good job at getting to other shots, and so he kind of did that last night.
In terms of the situations, when do you want him going to that? When don't you want him going to that?
Just depends, right? I mean, it depends on how the game is going. It depends on what the matchup is. It depends on what other options are available. I think for him, he's learning how to just constantly assess how he's being guarded and where he can gain advantage. Last night he went to the post. Last night he went to the nail ISO. And he got some catch and shoot shots. So I think it's just not being defined by one type of shot and really, seeing the game on you can get different shots in different spots. And same thing, like as much as we talk about that as a team, individual too, like you're not going to be able to play this way. You're not going to be able to play the same way against every team. Every game presents an opportunity, to find a small advantage. So tonight it might be off ball. The next night you might play out of the post. The next night it might be nail ISO because of the way they play. They might be zone tonight, so you got to work for it here. So I think just the open-mindedness of like shots are going to look different each game, and we just got to fight to take the best ones.
Joe, back in LA, you talked about the point guard committee with you, D. White, and Drew. Was that a conversation you had with them before the season about like the three of us are going to work together to figure out how to organize this offense, and how has that evolved over the years?
Not really. I think it just kind of just happened. Just communication, trying to see it from their perspective, what they like, what they don't like. It's also trying to. I think it's all of our jobs to get the ball where it needs to and get organized. And like sometimes as a coach, you want to find that balance of controlling the play call frequency and allowing the guys to communicate on the court on what they think they want to run or what's important. So I think it's more of just that empowerment and just kind of being on the same page.
Last two questions, Gary.
Joe, 40 years ago, John Townsend would tell Patrick Ewing to block everything near the rim, even though it was goaltending, to intimidate shooters from entering the paint. With a guy like Neemias, do you want him to kind of swat things away, even though he's picked up some goaltendings, or do you want him? No, you want him.
I want him to make the right play at the right time.
How tough is that to tell a shot blocker, don't block this shot, it might be goaltending? What's that process like? Or
I've never thought of it that way. To me, it's just like block it or don't goaltend it. That's kind of how I look at it. But to me, it's more for Nimi. Like you take a look at him, and I think he's only played 300 NBA minutes in his career. Think of something low like that, and so what you've seen is obviously with the time that he's gotten over this last week, the progression of his defensive IQ has improved, and it's going to continue to do so. So I think it's more about that, right? Like it's always about situation, time, and score. And our system's a little different because sometimes the five's on the five, sometimes the five's not on the five, and sometimes we want you to help at the rim, and sometimes you don't want to give up threes. And we were kind of in a little bit of that gray area last night when we give up some overhelps in a couple possession game. And so I think it's just a matter of him learning what's called for at that particular time, right? And it's a time and score thing, it's a matchup thing, it's a game-specific thing. And we've been working with him on a specific coverage. And then last night we go to a completely different adjustment, and he's got to do the opposite of what we've been telling him. But that's what the game called for. So just continuing to learn all that, and I think he's doing a good job of that.
You talked about timeline in terms of just sort of letting whatever need to reveal itself to you during your first year. Now that you're in your second year, have you been able to navigate those types of conversations with lineup changes? What is required from a coach to kind of be that assertive, and especially with a new team?
I think communication is important. I think you have to have a why you're doing what you're doing. You have to have an understanding. I think you got to build a trust with your players that like winning is the most important thing. And as long as we're all in agreement that we're doing this because we think it gives us the best chance to win at this particular moment, then it has to get done. And so, one, building that trust of understanding that winning is the most important, and then two, communicating it in a way of like, this is what we have to do because it's what's best for everybody.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.